Antibiotics have been widely used in the healthcare system since their discovery by Professor Alexander Fleming in 1928, and research into phage therapy has rapidly declined. The overuse of antibiotics in the healthcare system is rife, and this has led to the increase in numbers of bacterial resistance. Since the 1940s, the production of antibiotics dramatically increased, yet since the 1970s, and especially by 1999, there have been no antibiotics being developed. As you can see, between 2010 and 2012, there has only been one new antibacterial drug application approved in the 2-year period, compared to the first result between 1980 and 1984, where over 17 new drug applications were approved. In the Journal of Antibiotics, an article written by Butler et al. States that in the 1990s there were 18 companies producing antibiotics. Today, in 2014, there are only 4. Phage therapy is an old remedy that was used to treat bacterial infections before the introduction of penicillin, but since the 1940s and the creation of the antibiotic wonder drug, research into phage therapy has decreased. We have now turned to phage therapy in trying to find new ways to beat pathogenic bacteria. After a 50-year decline, research into phage therapy has begun to be revived due to the threat of resistant bacteria, and we have no way to combat them. In Thomas Hassler's book, Viruses vs. Superbugs, he states that humans are at a constant struggle against microbes, that we will never win. However, the revival of research into phage therapy is proving to be a lot more beneficial to the human population than antibiotics ever were. In this presentation, my aim is to answer these questions. Why is the overuse of antibiotics dangerous? What is the importance of phage therapy to the human population? And why should there be an increased awareness of phage therapy and its uses in the healthcare system? According to the Oxford Dictionary of Chemistry, antibiotics are substances that destroy or inhibit the growth of microorganisms, particularly disease-producing bacteria. Antibiotics work in 2 ways, either by inhibiting bacterial growth or by lysing the cell. As stated before, they were discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928, when he realized that he had actually contaminated a streak plate. Fleming took a sample of the liquid, which he called mold juice. Mold juice actually inhibited the growth of bacteria. Though this was a medical breakthrough, what was not anticipated was the increase in bacterial resistance that followed. A lack of knowledge and improper use of antibiotics has resulted in a significant increase in antibiotic resistance. This graph shows that out of 70 respondents of the survey that was sent out, only 12.85% believed that antibiotics kill both viruses and bacteria. Though the majority of people know the correct answer, this lack of knowledge can increase the numbers of inappropriate use of antibiotics, especially that of the next question, where 50% of people didn't know the dangers of overusing broad-spectrum antibiotics. This may result in the population not following doctors or the manufacturer's instructions for the safe and effective use of antibiotics, leading to the significant increase in bacterial resistance. Why is the overuse of antibiotics not safe? Put simply, it's not safe as it increases antibiotic resistance, which in turn is dangerous for the general public. This means that an outbreak of resistant bacteria would do more damage than that of a non-resistant bacteria. An example of resistance is MRSA. Before phage therapy was revived, it was harder to control bacterial resistance and fight against it. Now the use of bacteriophages can help combat pathogenic bacteria. Bacteria become resistant in a variety of different ways. By bacterial transformation, which is when a plasmid from the environment is taken up by the cell. Bacterial conjugation, which is the passing of genetic material from one cell that contains the plasmid to another through sex pili. Finally, through transposons, which are sections of DNA that move from one location on the genome to another. If one bacterial cell survives the antibiotic, this can increase the chances of bringing about bacterial resistance. This is why it is very important for the general public to have some basic level of understanding of when and how to use antibiotics effectively. This may decrease the rate of antibiotic resistance. Phage therapy is actually an old technique, though the graph shows that 60% of the respondents believed that phage therapy was actually a modern technique. This is not hard to believe, as phage therapy research became almost extinct after the introduction of penicillin. Another question was asked whether they had heard of phage therapy, to which the response was that of 80% had not heard of this form of treatment. Bacteriophages were first discovered by Frederick Twort and Felix de Herelle between 1915 and 1917. In the survey carried out, 18.6% of respondents believed that the bacteriophages would infect their own cells. Bacteriophages only infect bacteria, like retroviruses only infect human cells. Around a decade before the use of penicillin, bacteriophages were used to treat bacterial infections. Even after the introduction of penicillin, the Soviet Union continued to do research into phage therapy. Phages can either lyse, or in the case of temperate phages, they can infect cells. Temperate phages, which are the phages that infect cells, aren't used in phage therapy as they are unreliable and don't always kill off the bacterial infection. Some lytic phages, like the strain Felix 01, kill off a range of different bacteria, and they aren't specific to only one strain. Phages move in their environment via diffusion, and when bound to a specific cell surface, they inject their genome into the cell. Once their genome is incorporated into the host cell, they then use the cell's own materials to produce new viruses. The virus then produces lysins and holins, which causes the host cell to lyse. This graph shows from the survey that 54.2% of people believed phage therapy was better than antibiotics. Only 4.3% of people believed that phage therapy was worse than antibiotics, yet 41.4% of people answered 50-50, possibly indicating that they were unsure. The advantages of phage therapy outweigh those of antibiotics. A major advantage is the lysis of bacterial cells caused by the phage, yet antibiotics are bacteriostatic, such as tetracycline, meaning that they can bring about the mutation. Phages are also non-toxic and specific to bacteria. They only kill specific bacteria, meaning that they don't disrupt your natural flora. 14% of answers in the survey believe that antibiotics will make you feel better than the use of phage therapy. However, this is very untrue. They don't interfere with other medications. Overall, with the use of phage therapy, there are no adverse effects. Here is a list of both the advantages and disadvantages of phage therapy. The table shows a mix of responses. Looking into phage therapy has shown that each of these bacterial-caused diseases can and have been looked into to be treated with phages. As of yet, respiratory and gastrointestinal infections, along with eye infections and C. difficile, have been looked into. And there have been some clinical trials, though very few. In a BBC article, a man stated that he regularly takes phage therapy for a reoccurring eye infection, and that it can easily be added to the skin in a spray or taken by a capsule. As of yet, the American company Amplify are the only company leading the research in phage therapy today. Just because there's a major company out there looking into lung and gastrointestinal infections doesn't mean that there aren't scientists out there looking into different methods for the use of phage therapy. There is current research carried out by Dr. Martha Clokey at the University of Leicester, who is pioneering research into using phages to kill C. difficile. In the survey that was handed out, 77.14% of people said that they didn't know any diseases being treated by viruses today. I feel that it's important for society to understand the importance of not just phage therapy, but as of 2014, viruses such as HIV are being used to treat cancers. Viruses are showing themselves not to be something that we should fear, but something that we should work with. Viruses are showing to be effective in not just the healthcare system, but also in agriculture and the petroleum industries as well. Most people responded to the survey saying that depending on how they felt, they may take phage therapy if offered in the healthcare system. 90% of people stated that they feel that society should use phage therapy more often. Hopefully now you understand how bacterial resistance comes about, what phage therapy is, and why it's so important in the healthcare system.